Today, I'm excited to introduce Elizabeth McKellar here with me. She is the mastermind behind the Nouveau Romantics. She has done tons of weddings. She's based in Colorado, and she has grown her following across the wedding industry. I'm excited to learn more about you and your company. So tell me more, Elizabeth.
Oh boy. Where should we start? I think the best way to start is to say that this is an entirely accidental career and company. So I went to school for architecture. I worked in corporate architecture for 4 years. I was in Austin in grad school at UT for architectural history and theory. And on a whim, did some photo shoots, sent them to be published way back when blogs were really big, and put together a website and kind of just threw some stuff out there. So what was always great, and the thing that I always come back to, is that I never thought about what would I do if it succeeded, never thought about what would I do if it failed. There was zero thought in it. And I would say the best decisions I've ever made in my life, period, are the ones that I just do. And there's not a lot of thought behind it. And so I started doing, because of my background in architecture, I started doing event design, florals, and stationery. No planning, just kind of the design component. 2 years into it, I got a really big client who had a piece of land outside of Austin. They were going to have a 500-person wedding, and I quickly realized we need a planner. And to be frank, we should do it. So I hired my first right hand. We executed the first planning wedding was 550 guests, 200 staff, like 30
Wow.
buses, the most logistically complex thing that, you know, ever since then, I'm not too worried about just about anything. And so that's when we added planning in, and we kept doing florals. Everything was kind of in-house for a couple of years. And then around 2016, I started to just kind of simplify stuff because I didn't want an inventory anymore. I didn't want a warehouse. I love all of you production houses and all you rental houses and all you florists. I'm so appreciative of you, and there is nothing that I want less than a warehouse. And so, yeah, but I found it's really fun because it's essentially creative collaboration across so many different people, and that my job is ultimately like matchmaking, finding the right fit, both stylistically, but also personality wise, and who's going to be a good fit for it. And so I will say the wedding industry is an absolute accident, but it's been 15 years. So we're still here. And it's taken me to some pretty incredible places. And I've met so many people. And, I've lived a wild life. So I'm very
I
grateful
love
for it.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. So how did you come up with like, okay, how do you mix like architecture with weddings, and then
Well, what's interesting is I just see events. I think a lot about how things are going to age, probably because architecture in the 1980s was not a kind time frame. So was the 1990s. It's not a time that people look fondly back on. And so I remember explaining it to a architecture professor that he was so disappointed that I'm not doing architecture. And I was like, look, I get to design these things. I get to design a one night only event, and then it disappears. There's only photos. It never has to age badly. The materials never have to break down. It's a one time, be present, and then it's gone. And I actually love it. But I think of events and weddings in the same way that architects are trained. So we think of the journey and the pathway. So where you start, how you travel through spaces, what you see, what are your sight lines, how do you know where to go, what's happening next, what gets revealed each stage and each stage. And so I would say that perspective is absolutely how I design weddings, from invitations down to where do guests officially arrive, and then where do they go next? How do they know that? What piece at which time? It's the whole orchestra. And so it's very similar. Personally, it's really similar.
yeah, I love that. I actually went to architecture school
Oh yeah.
and then life just took me in a different direction.
Yeah.
I just like was really bad at drawing and
I'm we all have our strengths. Like, I think that you can get through architecture. There were some friends of mine who were born this way. I wanted to go to fashion school. My mom said, we're not you can't afford to go to fashion school, so you should try architecture instead. But it's funny because I feel like fashion could have been a more lucrative career. Architecture just looked like it. But I will say what I so appreciate is that architecture is the most technical creative degree that you can get. So it just it it teaches you a creative process. That's it. And
Yeah.
I would do it again in a heartbeat with zero intention of being an architect.
Yeah, no?
It's like, I don't need to do it. I knew that very early on. I didn't want to be an architect. I knew that in third year of university. And I was like, but my best friend convinced me to stick it out. And she's just finish your degree and then you can go do whatever you want. So,
So tell me, how did you grow in Colorado? Like, was it simple connections? Like, did people come to you for weddings?
so it up. I started my company in Austin. So I was in
Okay.
Austin from 2010. 2011 is when we signed our first clients. It was the end of 2010. 2011 through 2016, I was in Austin. We did primarily Austin and Texas weddings. We did a bunch of private property, but towards the end, we started getting more destination weddings. I knew intuitively, I'm not a girl. I can't be pinned down. I wanted things to be different and I never want to have to repeat things. And so what evolved was essentially, and then in 2016, I moved to LA. And then I moved back to Texas briefly right before COVID and spent the first 6 months in Texas. And then in June, I went back to Canada for COVID. I
Wow.
continued to work across the country. And so I was mostly doing destinations. So I always said it didn't really matter where I was because like I wasn't doing local weddings. Last year, I had a wedding in Mexico City. I had a wedding in LA, and I knew I wanted to come back to the States. I didn't know where I wanted to be. I contemplated moving to Mexico City. And at the last second, Colorado, the powers that be were like, you need to come to Denver. And Denver's been on my list for like it's been trying to get my attention. And it took me getting here, taking a leap of faith. I got an apartment. I didn't even know what neighborhood I was in, but it was one of those, I didn't think about it. And it's exactly where I should be. So I'm at the point now where I've done last 10 years, mostly destination weddings. I'm looking more to stay home. I am like the opposite of everyone. And I think there may be starting to be a growing trend of people who are like, we don't want to do as many destination weddings or even for couples, right? I kind of think there's so many nuances and so many decisions that go into planning a destination or where we want to have it. And so I would just like to sleep in my bed more because 2019,
Mhm.
2023 were 2 years that I traveled a tremendous amount. And I have a dog. I love my bed. I just want to be here. So the Denver and the Colorado chapter is new. It's not extensive. There's a lot of other people who have been here a lot longer. But what I'm excited is, and what really appealed to me about Denver and Colorado is we have really strong creative partners, people who service Aspen and Vail and all that stuff. So I'm always looking for infrastructure. Who do we have? When I look at destination locations, I'm always looking for either a really strong catering partner, someone that really gets it and I know is going to be able to bring what we need to it. And then sometimes we bring in other people. And so we did a big wedding in Santa Fe and there's an amazing catering company who just kind of gets it. And I was like that. And so for me, Denver and Colorado has strong creative partners, has a really good Denver itself is kind of a bit of a forgotten stepchild that I'm determined to. There's so many good little parts about it. So I'm excited to bring Destination Brain here and then to Colorado because I think I bring a particular perspective, like East Coast, West Coast best practices here. And I was like, I think we can do some really good stuff here.
Yeah. I actually started in Colorado as well.
Really?
I loved Colorado. Like, I used to live in Colorado Springs.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's literally how I grew my business. There is so much demand over there.
Yeah.
There's so many weddings over there,
Yeah.
and like people from California, they come a lot to have weddings in
Mm-hmm.
Aspen or Vail.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a lot. Denver too, in downtown
Denver's,
Denver.
yeah, Denver. When I talk to my fellow vendors, there is some, but most people go to the mountains. And so I think with the Sundance Film Festival coming to Boulder, Denver itself and like Colorado Springs feels like Austin in 2010. I was just telling another vendor here. And Austin in 2010, when I first moved there, had the St. Cecilia, the San Jose, the Four Seasons, the Driscoll, and maybe the Omni Barton Creek. There wasn't a lot of hotels, and there was a very minimal amount of rental companies. And what it did in 5 years, we had ACL, we had South by Southwest. They got Formula One, they got a whole bunch of other stuff, and it completely transformed the city. And when I look around at Denver, I'm like, we don't quite have the full breadth of hotel partners, of venues. It feels like it's going to catch up. So I feel free to put a pin in it, give our flights 5 years. And I think this city and the surrounding areas, everyone goes to the mountains, but I'm kind of like, can we do other
Yeah.
things that doesn't require that? I look at, same with destination weddings, what venues are available? What is our infrastructure? What local vendors do we have? Who do we have to bring in? Is there different? I look at every location in terms of value. What are the things that are already innate strengths? And then what do we need to supplement? Like the Broadmoor has Cloud Camp on top of a mountain. And if you took all of that furniture and redid it, but like with
Yeah.
amazing design, that would be incredible. There's so many good pockets, but I don't understand why no one's done, but I think that's where the design end comes in. And yeah, mark my words, give Denver about 5 years, but Sundance is totally going to change the city for the better. Like it's going to drive development a lot.
What do you think is hurting venues?
Well, we're going to back up. This is going to be the first, here's your snippet right here. So
Yeah.
school is in session. I learned this from someone who worked in graduate school at a university years ago, like at least 10 years ago. And he said, demographically, millennials are the children of baby boomers, biggest human population section that we've ever seen. Millennials are, I'm an elder millennial. So we're the children of the biggest number of people. We've moved through that. Universities knew this years ago because they're like, how do we keep people in school? Because we're literally losing bodies. There aren't as many bodies anymore. And so one, I think it's being aware that statistically even without COVID, we would have had less bodies getting married. Two, you add COVID and you add changing values. Venues, man, I wish I had the bandwidth to do consulting. Can I just help you sell your space? Because there are some basics that would be really helpful. Kills venues is if it's out in the middle of nowhere with no good hotels anywhere. There's some stuff there's some amazing ones down near Pueblo in Colorado with like not near the closest town is tiny. So there's a Best Western on the side of a highway. And if you're asking people to come for the whole weekend, that's not what they're going to pick. They want something with an experience. There's all kinds of stuff, making it more of a neutral palette. A lot of the time, even when I was in Texas, people would kind of insert their own design things. And I was like, every bride and groom kind of wants to go in there and put their own stamp on it, own color palette. So the second you start to insert your own, it's like, as a planner and a designer, we're fighting against it. And clients will be like, I don't really, they will gravitate to the blank slate or something that's just like a much nicer kind of canvas. I would say there's amazing venues, but they're in the middle of nowhere. And so they're not thinking about how people are going to stitch together the whole weekend and what clients are actually looking for. And they're looking for additional or ease of transportation. How far are people having to drive? So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did notice that when I had some weddings in Pueblo, and I remember like the transportation was a headache.
yeah.
Everything was far, and then it like delays everything,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
The whole experience is mostly transportation.
Well, it's the same in Austin when I started. Fredericksburg was nowhere near what Fredericksburg is now. And so for years, we didn't even have a hotel. There was no hotel chains. It was only Airbnb, like bed and breakfast. So to get a hotel block for 150 people, we can't do that. So then some people are staying in Johnson. It's just, those are the things that cause people to hesitate. Now, Fredericksburg is a perfect example. We did a wedding there. They have hotels, but the city isn't ready with the infrastructure to support that kind of guest count. And so it's these nuances for the kind of people that are coming there. They expect a certain level of service, and so that's where I help people navigate. How do we pick these places? What are your people going to need? What is the transportation time? Do they get on 2 flights and a 3-hour drive? A lot of my clients don't feel comfortable with that. It's the same as European weddings where it needs to be within an hour of a major airport. They don't want to have to transfer, right? It's all of these things that a lot of the time, I honestly, my life revolves around hotel blocks and transportation deliberations, like decisions, and being like, do we want to make people travel that far? And how
Yeah.
can we make it easier? So yeah. Oh, lots of ideas. And that's where the architecture, I think, brain and then like development side of things comes in. Cause
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, we could put these things together and that would work. But a lot of the time I'm like, oh, you're in the middle of nowhere.
It's a
Trouble.
logical and creative mind
Yep,
together, right? Like being
absolutely.
analytical about things.
Hmm.
How do you feel clients when you're telling them suggestions about whether to shift the mindset, right? That they may be very stubborn about a certain idea that might not benefit them. How do you go about it?
I'm a middle child who's a Canadian. So thanks, Mom. We're a natural born peacekeeper. Um, it depends on what it is. There's certain things that I will come in, like transportation, where it's like, no, this is just how it's going to be, right? However, an amazing question for I think all of us that would be really, I did it with a bride who came to me a week before her wedding and she wanted to completely change everything. No. And so essentially, it was not everything. It was just flowers in the entrance. I was like, "Ooh, what?" And so I listened to her. And then I was like, what's the desire underneath that? What are you actually looking for? Because the request or the something, there's always a reason underneath it. And I think I come from the perspective of like, when someone just is like, no, we're not doing it, I'm like, there are like 2 people in my life that could do that to me. Everyone else, I'd be like, yeah, I don't think so.
I love it.
Let me find a way. And so I approach it from that same perspective. I was like, what's underneath this? Because at the end of the day, they probably want to feel heard. And to just shut it down, there's a lot of my job feels like I tell people no all the time. Like, that's not going to work. Right. And so I'll start to be sensitive to it. And then, okay, does this really matter? Or it would be nice if it's like a parent thing. A lot of the time I'll be like, has this person asked for a lot? Is this like the 2 things the father of the bride's asking for? We can make that happen. That's fine. But I would say, what's the desire underneath it? And usually it's a lot more emotional or something else, sort of connected, but not really. And so it could just be like, well, I'm worried that the flowers aren't going to look like what I think it is, or like, oh, okay. And then that bride was like, actually, like, it's okay. I trust, she just needed to be heard.
Yeah.
And she was going to make something up to be like, we need to change. And it was like, let's actually go. Like, how are you? How are you
Sometimes
doing?
they're nervous. Sometimes they're like kind of like, it's approaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about, the day is approaching and they're nervous and they might start hesitating for things, doubting.
Mm-hmm. You empathize. It's like straight up, I want not therapy, but like coaching where it's just how they're feeling is completely normal. It's natural. So many people in your situation have felt the same way. And like, what do you need? And the what do you need? We're in this funky human development point where it's like that question might not be asked, or it might not be a safe place to actually like, it was like, you know what? If you don't know, just like sit on it and let me know, because this is a good one. I think from wedding vendors, we have to remember that this is the biggest, often one of the biggest investments, social displays, which is incredibly vulnerable. And it's putting their tastes, their hospitality, their everything on display to their loved ones, to the world. And that's a lot of pressure. It's vulnerable, whether we recognize it or not. And so all of these emotions come up as a natural part of you're getting there. And there's an amazing team where we can either shut it down and be like, no, you can't, remember, like Commander Liz can come out, or it can just be like, hey, what's actually going on? And I will say I spend a good amount of time, enough times with clients to be like, Yeah, your mom's acting a little nuts because she's being reminded of her mortality and when she got married, and like she's suddenly realizing that she's older than she realized. Like there's stuff going on that's not you. And also there can be stuff going on in you that's not this. 99.9% of the time, it has nothing to do with the thing that they're coming to us or complaining or freaking out about. It's like, it's not bad. That's the smoke screen. And so we could fix that problem, but it's not fixing the undercurrent of what's actually happening. And so in those moments when you can bridge that and be like, hey, we're on your team. I'm here for you. What's going on? And dive in, and that will dissuade a lot of those like anxious moments.
It's very good to be able to spot the problem
Mhm.
and solve that problem instead of like trying to adjust everything based on what the bride is telling you, right? That comes with a
Yeah.
lot of experience.
Yeah. And sometimes you can't change the client's personalities. Like I had a bride who was just like, she's going to pick things apart. It's just like we're not going to be able to get her into a relaxed state, and everyone is doing her best, but she's going to have the experience that she's going to have. And so we can make the best of it. But I mean, don't worry. I'm far, 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 far from 100% cool as a cucumber. So I still have my own stuff. But for the most part, if I can take a beat and just remember, like, okay, what's actually going on? What do you really need?
What do you feel couples are struggling with right now the most?
Trusting us.
Mm. Has it always been
I
like that?
know, but I think there's this wild, it's almost like different age brackets too. Cause again, now I'm suddenly in this, like, I was like, oh, I'm like the older wedding planner. This is wild. Um, there's different values. The wedding industry is changing. It's not even actually not the wedding industry. The clients are changing. The values are changing. The world landscape is changing. And we occasionally forget that there are people with like hard earned dollars at the end of the line. And that what, like, anyone who's been around for a long time, you know, we get set in our prices and our expectations. We're just like, this is what it is. Right. And there's this lack of transparency and almost lack of communication. There's just these conversations that are possible with people, with clients, just with social media, with marketing. We could just, I went on a, not a rampage. I had some really good ideas recently around transparency in starting prices. This is good. I was like,
Mm.
here's a snippet. Here's a whole thing, guys. Here it is. Full verbal form. I was looking for a client for photography, and my usual go-tos in terms of price points weren't working. And so I had to go kind of off. I need to find someone a little bit lower than normal. And it was low enough that most of my friends were not going to willingly give us a deal. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go find some new people. You know what? New people in the roster would be really great. And the difficulty it was to find people's pricing, and how much I realized those of us that were including anything about pricing, starting point, average, anything was, and I'm a planner and I know things, and I skipped over you because I was like, there's no way you're in our budget. Turns out some of them were in our budget. But as a planner, I skipped over you. So there is this full host of clients who never even reached out because they had no idea. And then furthermore, and then the messages and the DMs that happened when I started to share about this, being like, hey, you just need to do starting prices. And almost everyone came back and was like, oh, no, 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 but our projects are so complex that we can't do that. And I'm like, no, everyone. Find a way to open Pandora's box and be one so confident and comfortable in your pricing that you're like, you know what? I don't care. You guys, my competition can know. I think it's the fear that some big clients are going to come along and you're like, oh, I could charge differently. And I was like, but what if you don't? What if you're just so set and this is the number I need to make it work for me to feel good? And you could do a whole blog post or a whole standing something that says, here's our starting price. What does this include in high season? What are high seasons? Which months does that include? Is it Saturdays? Is it Fridays and Mondays? If someone wants something on a lower end, tell them how to do that. And if you have different number of team members, explain how your team expands or contracts. If you have travel fees, explain how that happens. There's this whole lack of transparency that's happening. And I'm in a WhatsApp group as a fly on the wall. This is where I'm like, I don't know why people don't do market research. Maybe it's just me. And it's couples who are planning their wedding. And I'm not going to tell, because I don't want to get booted out of the group because it's been
No,
market
no.
research. They are crowdsourcing within themselves in protected groups for pricing, for experience, for everything. So either you take control of the PR narrative and start giving more information and just educate them about the process, or they will not even reach out because it's too much effort and there are other people that are making it that much easier to get information from you. But every single person was like, oh no, but it doesn't apply to me. It's like, no, it doesn't. It does apply to you. You have to find a way, because there's 85% of people who just aren't even reaching out to you because they think you're booked or out of their budget. And it might be true, but like, it helps to give them a parameter versus getting on a call. Sarah Schreiber did a great TikTok video where she asked couples beyond price, what are the things that cause people to not pick one vendor over another? And a lot of it was like, I don't want to get on 40 calls with photographers, only to realize halfway through, you're so out of my budget. It's wasting my time and it's wasting yours. And everyone's like, yeah, but I do so much better on calls. It's what business, coaches have always said. And I'm like, people aren't even getting on calls with you if they don't know what to expect. And it is actually wasting both of our times, which is kind of, and if we're that far away, we're not going to convince them to suddenly quadruple their budget. It's not,
Yeah.
it's also like not, if they do that, there is an energetic price you're going to pay. The expectation they're going to have on that when it goes so far beyond what they wanted, that there's going to be a whiplash along the way. So it's just put it out there and let the right people be like, right? So sorry, that's a tangent.
So, do you agree that maybe people need to start putting like a pricing?
You don't have to do
I
a
mean, a
guide.
starting price, but like a guide or what?
Something from Sam from ID Action said is people are much further along the sales process before they even reach out to you. So they're collecting a ton of information. So this is where like those of us that have been in the industry for a long time, I think are falling short or missing the boat, is that you have to give them the chunk of the sales call in information on a standing page, what it's like to work with us. P&R 101, like give them
Yeah.
information. Because it's the same. It's funny. I'll put my own deadline in this there, where it was, I have a whole thing on, we have a kind of pretty standard price per person, all in budget range that we work with. And so you can also educate clients immediately. You was like, go to your favorite planners, ask them what their average range is, point to specific weddings, ask what their price per person was for planners. I was like, because the wedding you like in California that looks effortless and simple might be $5,000 a person. Is that your budget?
Yeah.
Other planners might be like, oh, like we're like, 600, but your budget is $250 a person, right? You got to talk numbers. You've got to give them more information. Or what I also said is there's so many of these now where people are submitting proposals and there's a database. So now, and I haven't spoken up in this WhatsApp group. And so they'll be like, oh, I put my photographer cost X. And I was like, well, you booked them 2 years ago. So that's their 2 years ago pricing. And so now people who come back and they're like, oh, well, they quoted me $2,000 more. I was like, yeah, because you may have gotten married into 2025, but that's not the pricing for 2025. Like you've changed it. And so again, it's kind of either you take control. Oh, I liked it. But then there's this website. And then there's what's it like to work with that? Budgeting 101. Like, give them information so they can set their expectations accurately, or else they're going to make their own expectations and then you're going to be battling them. And I think that's where all the friction comes in, where I said, like, couples, we need to be trustworthy. And I think they have experiences where it doesn't feel like that. And we can also come back and be like, well, I was like, we're the ones with the years of experience. And so how are you guiding them in a way that's empowering to them? So
Yeah.
it doesn't mean a
I
whole pricing guide. It just means like, stop holding stuff behind smoke screens and start owning your own pricing and owning your own process and trusting that's going to help, because not giving them information just means they make it up themselves.
okay. I love that. Yeah. So make it easy for them to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Um, what do you think would help, you know, photographers, other vendors? I bet you get reached out a lot from other vendors. Like, what do you feel like they need to do in order to work with you or to provide a service to the couple that will benefit them?
Yeah. It's heavily relationships based. It's a relationship, and pretend it's a long game. Pretend you get to build a relationship with me for like the next 5 years before I even give you a chance, because I don't do a lot of weddings. So the stakes are high. I don't hand my baby over to just anyone. And I have a lot of responsibility for clients, especially when they're investing a lot of money. And so I think that's the thing where it's like, there are certain ones, transportation, sure, whatever. There's stuff that's easy, but photography, I don't know how you work. I don't know what you're like. Cold emails make me ragey, like just straight up, because it comes across as like, hi, I like your work. Can you give me money? That's how it registers to me. Like, can you just send me clients? And I was like, why on earth would I ever do that? And I think that's where I'm such a relationship space, because I need to know you can perform for me to even put you in front of my client. And because if shit hits the fan, I'm the one on the firing squad. I'm the one that has to pick up the pieces. And so it's just like, there's a part where there's lots of instances where we can work together. There's lots of instances, but I need to see who you are as a person. I need to see how you respond to emails, professionalism. There's all this kind of stuff. And so um, it's a slow burn. And then the other thing that I would say that's really, because I know there's like so much education where it's like, reach out to the planners you like and tell them, and who's like, please don't, please don't. Pick 5. And for the next 5 years, you're just going to slowly develop a relationship with them. If you like, that's kind of, I think, where it's like, pitch it so far away that it's not something that's going to be an immediate return on investment. And
Yeah.
there's lots of options where it's like, I would love to take portraits of you, or if you have staff photos that you need, or like, because I'm relatively new to Denver, it's been really interesting. I have a couple projects coming up, and some people respond really well and others don't. And if they don't, I just move on, and I'm like, you have competition, so it's no skin off my back. I'm just going to go find the person that's really excited to work together, and I'm going to go invest in that relationship, because it's wild where I'm like, we're gone. Like, next. Yeah, it's gone. And so, yeah, I think have a really long lead time, and then realize like, oh, you know what? It's like SEO, search engine optimization. So Los Angeles wedding planner, let's take that. Really hard to rank highly on that, right? But Santa Clara wedding planner, much easier, because there just isn't as much competition. So those top planners, it's almost like have some different ranges of things in terms of like where some easier lifts on the SEO terminology. I was Googling things, and I was doing a blog post of my favorite like outdoor venues. And it was like, Denver outdoor location, very easy to rank for. Like, other things harder to rank for. And so like, you pick the stuff that's going to be easier to get in, and then you work your way through that. But to Lori Arians or Lynn Eastman, like, just like, there's certain ones you're just like, I mean, knock yourself out, but they have, I don't get nearly as many as they do, but it was like, we get tons, and I don't know, like, it's like, you can reach out, or you can just find out what we're doing and like walk up to us. and also be specific. It's kind of like applying for a job. Go into the company's website. You better know their projects. You better have something to say about them. You better have some feedback. You better have details and specifics. The more you can show them that you've done work, not just like, oh my God, I love the one in Vogue, right? Like you're like, well, yeah, I love how you do X, Y, and Z, or, I have this so and so that you should meet, right? It's fully relationships and networking. And interestingly enough, something else the wedding industry, start meeting people in person outside of the wedding industry. We do not do that. I'm like in Denver, bebopping around in like completely different social circles.
How do you find the clients? Because as a wedding planner, I feel like I see yourself a lot like a realtor.
I don't, that is like a forever, they find me. I haven't really cracked the code of going, it's really just like showing, honestly, TikTok. I did like a little baby. I'm not really on TikTok because I don't love dancing and I didn't like what I thought it needed to be. And then I did a cute little 2-week challenge where you just had to post every single day. And I did it. And I was like, oh, and it's a different market. It's a totally different market. So Instagram, interestingly enough, is primarily like vendors love us. I love us. But clients, they go to Instagram to confirm it's like a running portfolio. TikTok is the Wild West of it's spaghetti on the wall. I don't really know. But what I found is referrals aren't really always my best source of work because people have to come to me and say, I like your work, what you do out of, I have a client next fall who was like, I Googled Denver wedding planner on Instagram. And I was like, oh, yay. And she's like, and I liked your work the best. And I was like, well, that's fun. Also, reason number 8,262,000. I don't want to do nobody's Googling destination wedding planner. Nobody's Googling on Instagram or anything else. Nobody is ever searching for destination wedding photographer. They're looking for Aspen wedding photographer. They're looking for Aspen wedding planner. They're looking for Mexico City wedding planner. And so here's the keys to the kingdom. Own your lane in some capacity and then show your expertise. But yeah, I talk to everyone and they're like referrals. And I was like, stylistically, not a good fit for me. Weirdly enough, it's wild. It's
Yeah.
such a bummer because I'm like, really? But it's usually like such a mismatch because they didn't find my work and there wasn't something specific around it. And so then they're like, what I bring is not really what they came for. They just came because someone's like, you should go talk to Liz. I'm like, I mean, yes, but
Have you ever found someone that was not a good fit to work with you? And you
oh
like
yeah,
just told them, no,
yeah,
we cannot work.
uh-huh, yeah. One, I had an interview. I should find out who ended up doing their wedding. The bride couldn't make it, so the groom was talking to me, and he didn't know who he was talking to, and he didn't know why he was talking to me. And I was like, I don't think this is a good fit. And his fiance, female, was like really upset. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna let you know when you're interviewing planners, like you should know what company you're talking to, and you shouldn't be confused if I'm the owner if I work for someone. I was like, so yeah. Oh, there's been more early on. There were a couple couples that we like fired midway through because it was just like, this is not working. And you should go find your magical. It's not you, us. We're just not the right fit. So
That's a perfect breakup
yeah.
line.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
It's just, this is not, we're not, I can't give you what you need and you deserve to have the experience that you want. So
Yeah. What are you looking for, the Nouveau Romantics in the next 2 years? Like, what is your goal?
Lyft is great. I was working with ChatGPT, my free business coach, the other day about this. Really sharing and showcasing my design process in a different way that shows a lot more of the behind the scenes. I would love to take what looks like a very ordinary standard venues and flip them on their heads. I would love, even Aspen weddings, a lot of the like Colorado mountain weddings are lovely. And I was like, Aspen has a killer art history. and community. So like, why are we not doing any art? You have Andy Goldsworthy installations. I'm like, I'm so confused as to why we haven't done that. Um, really bringing design. Interestingly enough, there's a phenomenal lighting designer that I will not name because I'm going to bring him to America, and I want one of those big non-glass glass tents, and I want to do art lighting installation. So I'm actually really excited to take some of the Denver venues that people kind of are like, like whatever. And I was like, no, this is like, I see the photos, I see the video, I see good design, I see
Yeah.
this. And I think that we can really transform how people experience spaces without having to go so far, without having to go to Lake Como or anything, or even Aspen or even Vail. We can do other things. And let me show you with intentional design. So, yeah.
You mentioned you like ChatGPT. It's your professional coach. I have my ChatGPT is my professional coach
Huh.
too. Do you use it for inspiration, like architecture, design?
I tried. I don't. I use it more for like running. So I have if anyone's interested, I was redoing my website. And so I was tired. I was trying to do copywriting. And eventually I'm just realizing like, oh, I should just use all of my clients' reviews. I have a 10-question review process. So it's great answers, gives you such good little nuggets. And I was like, oh, well, I should just feed that in, get them to do the best pull quotes. And then I kind of like developed this whole system of using my clients' words because I don't want to, and I shared this a little bit ago on Instagram too, where I'm tired of having to come up with ideal client avatars and like, what are they going to say and what's their
Yeah.
language? And I was like, if I have to do this one more time, I'm going to throw everything against a wall. And so I can't do it anymore. I'm like, why don't we just use the clients that love me and us? And why don't we just use their words? Because I'm pretty sure those are the client avatars and that's their language. And so what's
Yeah.
been amazing is like I rewrote my entire existing website right now is pulled from that. It's a 9-step process. And then I went back and retroactively rebuilt the system. And so if that's something you're interested in, and now I use it for like content calendars. I'm like, oh, I need to do an Instagram post, but I don't know what to do. It needs to be visuals. We can't put text on it. Give me some ideas. I use it for everything. And I have a folder that's just TNR stuff. And so it has that dialed in client avatar, voice, all that stuff. And so I haven't done it for visuals. One, because I don't love how long it takes. And two, I'm someone who likes to give a lot of freedom to the magic of what happens in real life. Quite frankly, I've seen really good architectural renderings. So I'm like, unless I can get that, I do like collages. And I am grateful for clients who trust me because I refuse to do bad renderings. I just won't do it. And so I don't know. And I'm also sensitive to the environmental impact of ChatGPT. So I was like, I don't want to be wasting water doing these silly renderings that aren't even that good and it's not getting the right thing and I'm not using the right prompts. So
Yeah.
I use it more for marketing and writing and blog posts. I can auto dictate it on my dog walks and it'll build a whole blog post out of it, which is so great.
It's
Highly.
it's honestly amazing.
Oh,
I love how you like hate the avatar thing because I'm like so tired of it too. I feel like going back to the testimonials is a great idea.
yeah.
Finding that your client and talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you describe your work? Because I feel it's very romantic for sure. I love how nostalgic it is.
Hmm.
I I get this fine art feeling. I don't know what it is. It must be the romantic side.
Yeah.
But when you're designing, right, for your couples, do you have the sauce kind of like, okay, this is what I kind of do? Or, right, because maybe one couple might come and be like, I want a wedding that looks like super Vegas extravagant.
Hmm.
Do you work with those kind of clients or are you more like, no, this is kind of the style, the aesthetic that I
Um,
go,
well, it's funny because for years I was always like, I don't have a style because like color wise, we've done the gamut. We do so many different. And then recently I was putting together an inspiration for things. I was like, oh, we definitely have a style, but it's like colors. So in terms of, I'll get to process in a second. I would say something that comes, I don't know if it was just innately, it's just part of me, or if it's part of my architecture. I'm really good at colors and materials and layering and creating really rich palette. Like that's something that brings me immense amount of joy. And so even when people come to me, anytime someone's like, I had a very sweet bride, I love you. I was like, I love you, Christy. But it was like in the middle of like Sophia Richie's wedding. And I was like, smiling nod. She wants a white and green wedding. Okay. And then what I normally do is like, I'll just be like, I find something and I get really excited. There's usually a nugget because people will come and they're like, this is what I want. And it's a quintessential, like, this is what I want, but this is what I really want. I don't know that I actually want this. And so it goes into listening. I've also realized how much over and above design work I tend to do, which I've had to find out, like, how do we not do 7 times more than we need to? But at the same time, the design process is something that I love. So it's very much always based on something around the client. I don't ever want to repeat. I don't want to repeat any design, any color palette, nothing. We'll always change it because I'm like, that was perfect for this instance in this location with this couple because of this story. You're not them. So why on earth would you have the same thing? So let's start where you're drawn to. Let's like figure out your vibe and see kind of how we can expand that. And so it's very tailored. It's very personal. It's always something. I'm just someone who's always kind of watching and I'll pull inspiration. I have a whole selection of Pinterest and Instagram hidden folders that have never seen the light of day of just like interesting colors, etc. And so in terms of the process, it's just like very customized. Like it's absolutely comes from their story and them. And I wouldn't have it any other way because it means every client is different. And that's so much what I'd rather do.
I
So,
love
yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder that.
Yeah. Because like, I'm always curious of like how it is perceived on the outside.
Yeah. So what venues are you wanting to work in the next, I don't know, 3 years in Denver, Colorado?
I mean, I won't turn down Dunbar Ranch, Kevin Costner, Yellowstone fantasy. Wouldn't turn that. There's a weekend progressive Aspen event that I have in my brain with a bunch of different venues that are not the norm. And so, but there's some here that I really like Highlands Ranch. And you guys are gonna laugh because it's not like big and flashy. Highlands Ranch Mansion looks like something straight out of Scotland. My friend Jacqueline owns Greystone Castle up in Boulder. There's a new one that looks new venue in Boulder that we're going to be at next week. So by the time this comes out, you guys will see it. That is a full-on European villa, like stunning. I would love like Brush Creek Ranch. There's stuff in Montana, Devil's Thumb Ranch. I don't know. I would just rather to do things that are amazing weekends and have more fun. I had a bride who came to us originally for Texas, and then we ended up at Sea Island. It's on my portfolio. And she was like, she had a lot of connections to it. She's like, but I don't want it to look like a traditional Southern wedding. I want it to look like an art museum party. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's turn it on. It's like, absolutely. So we had a Southern like barbecue rehearsal dinner, 100% do it. Wedding, completely different vibe. And so that's where it feels like an obvious one. Brush Creek Ranch or even Devil's Thumb, you could just turn all of that on its side. I'm excited. We have a wedding at the Denver Art Museum, and I really hope we can do projection mapping and art. And there's just so much that for me, I don't see. So I'm like, why are we not doing that? So mostly local. And I will say, actually, there are a couple abroad. Antigua, Guatemala, I would love to go to. There's a couple spots in Mexico. I love the Rosewood Mayacoba Hotel so much. I think it's like one of my top 3 favorite hotels in the world. I love Mexico and I love all of the Mexican vendors, just like they're phenomenal, talented, so hardworking, creativity out of the wazoo. So if you have a good budget, you can do a lot more than you can do here just because the cost of labor. But yeah, it's like I want to take normal stuff and just do it entirely differently. So
Yeah. Yes,
yeah.
I love that. I'm connecting the dots. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I love it. Okay.
Right? Amazing.
So for couples right now, planning, what do you, any advice to them? What should they, what do you want them to know?
Yes. Come gather round, sweet, sweet, sweet human. Um, I've said this for years. Every single time I've interviewed, what's your advice? I was like, planning a wedding is the microcosm of what you are building as a baby family. This is always, and it will always be, it is how you guys make joint decisions, how you troubleshoot things, how you navigate family dynamic, how you navigate boundaries, how you navigate finances, how you make financial decisions. Think of it as a team. Yes, there's a wedding attached to it, but it is this other thing. Furthermore, it's like wedding vendors, just find your A team. There is someone in every category that is super stoked to work with you. And I want to be like, don't stop until you find them. They are available at every price range. You also get what you pay for. So if it's too good to be true, they usually don't have the experience. And as long as you go in knowing that, I know when I'm getting a deal. I'm also not expecting them to be a 20-year veteran who's going to be able to troubleshoot that. And so figure out the priorities of the things that you want to hit, stuff that is not going to, is going to perform. Figure out those pieces. Sometimes it's the venue, right? I just want a pretty place. And I know that if we do cheaper catering or whatever, and that your budget's just a bunch of dials. And then the final piece, and this is interesting. This came up for me. Here's a great story. So I'm planning a creative dinner for next week. And I'm super stoked about it. I was sharing it. I was getting feedback and I was all excited. And then last weekend, this little gnome, this little gremlin crept into my brain and was like, if it's not going to be what people think it's going to be, what if it's actually not that good? What if the inspiration is better than the real result? What if people are disappointed in the final thing? What if it's not worth my vendor's time, right? Like it was wild. And I was like, what's happening? And then I was like, oh, my best weddings have always been when I release the pressure of it. And so this is for vendors too, where we go in and we put that pressure on ourselves. I've definitely done this for weddings. And then I've worked more, overgave, burnt out, threw more. And then what I wanted to do in that midst was throw more money at it to just make it better. I was like, well, if we just get more things, it'll be better. And I was like, well, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to sit with this. And I was like, I see it. So for vendors, when we put the pressure on, I took discount or whatever, like I can make sure this is the best thing. The second that pressure enters, it chokes some of the magic. A lot of the time we do it so we can see what we can perform. And obviously we all want to do a really good job. And then more importantly, when I thought about it, I was like, the number of clients that I have seen this, or when I go on Reddit boards just to do market research, and they're like, oh my God, I'm adding this and I'm that. I'm like, it's this anxiety of, oh my God, what if it's not going to be fun? What if it's not good enough? And I was like, oh. And so how many times, all of us, my hand is up, have we thrown money at something, did more, and maybe it worked out, but it was actually just the anxiety. And then the kicker is usually you throw money at it and then you have a hangover. That thing that you threw money at and did more and spent more, if it's beyond your means, never had the ROI you thought it was going to be. So then you're mad at yourself or potentially that vendor that you were like, you didn't. And it was like, actually, it was just because I was scared or was worried it wasn't going to be fun enough or people were going to think. And same with vendors too, where I was like, oh, this is the first time I've actually put these dots together. And so I had to sit down and be like, I know the weddings and the instances where it's been so much fun and so magical because my team is killing it. And I want to do that. And I was like, okay, so we're going to simplify some things. We're going to pull stuff back. We're actually going to cut the things that I started to add. And I was like, no, we're just going to go find the people and I'm going to put my effort into making sure that the team is really solid. and we're not throwing money at the problem. But I think that's like, you will hit moments. And if you can catch those moments of, oh, we need to do more, it
Yeah.
might not be fun. I'm scared it won't be good enough because it's a reflection of us, right? I'm not good at all sorts of stuff. And so
Yeah.
to stop and be like, actually, I have really good vendors. Who do I have? What do I need to simplify? And like the best weddings have been not the biggest budgets at all. In fact, a very medium budget. And
Wow.
those have been the most incredible. We can spend more money, but it's not going to necessarily fix it. And so, yeah, that's a new one. I haven't put it on Instagram. There's definitely a story involved in that. And I think it's really important for couples. You're not alone. I am very experienced and 1,000% had that happen to me. And also for vendors too, where we go in and we're like, I've done that as a planner. We'll have to make sure that this is really, really good. And working. It was good. It just wasn't as good as my internal requirements it made it out to be. So,
Yeah, no, that's amazing advice. I feel like sometimes we can get in our head when we're planning or when we're working with this
hmm
ideal client that we were like dreaming of and we finally get to work with them. And
hmm
then we could get in our heads like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or,
yeah, hmm
or maybe we need to make the experience better and just throw money at the
yeah, yeah.
wall and it doesn't turn out like you
And
wanted.
then we get mad, and then there's just ramifications. There's whiplash, and I was like, oh, we're gonna stop this whiplash. You know, we're gonna. I'll put some TikToks on that, being like, gather around, children. Let me tell you a story. It's like, ooh. So yeah, there you go.
And for someone that wants to plan weddings like you,
hmm
what is your best advice for them?
I don't know. It's a huge amount of emotional labor. You have to be it is mostly human wrangling. Like, it's not like, I remember being at an engage in Dubai and some of the top international wedding planners who work with like incredibly high net worth people. And they're like, I don't know if I'd do this. I don't know if I'd take these clients on. So I feel like there is this perception of this world. And it's a completely like, I want to be like, you got to put in the work. It's going to take a long time. Business ownership is literally all your bullshit thrown back at you again and again and again. It's not the client, it's you. It's this like every single one of things that you might try to hide from in your own personal development as a human. This is the pressure cooker for it. And in terms of my thing for all of us, for the wedding people, the true skill is when you have an unlimited budget and like Dunbar Ranch and you can do whatever, it's not hard to make a pretty wedding. But for photographers and videographers who are like, oh, we don't have like, I was like, no, if you can make something low budget, medium budget, if you can find ways to creatively storytell it, that's actually the true talent. And what's always been interesting is people will be like, oh my gosh, that had to have been $1 million wedding. And I was like, no, that was like $210,000. Like, what? I'm so glad that you think that was, it's not, what? What would we have been spending it on? And so that's where I'm just like, it depends. Find the things that really bring you joy. And I think there's an element of, yes, kind of like, what's our own version of elevation versus what it looks like for someone else. So I could look to Lori Aarons and being like, I want to do that. And I'm like, well, I'm not Lori. I don't have Lori's person. Like, we are very different people. And so for me to gun for that is going to be challenging. But my personal one is like, oh, what I really love is like walking into the Denver Art Museum and pin spots and projection mapping. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. What do you mean what? Like, that's what we're going to do. We can't. And I was like, we're going to do this, this, and this. And that's fun for me. So elevating things that people just assume are standard. And I was like, no, we're going to do something fun. So I feel from the way that people are relating to money and budgets, learning how to be really creative and strong in creating really magical things within constraints is like I could make a very, very cost effective, cheap wedding look incredible because I know what stuff to invest in and what stuff not to and how to do it. And these are going to be the important parts. That's the skill set. And so that's a long winded answer with three different answers, but there you go.
Liz, this was so insightful. This was so juicy. And I feel like all our viewers are going to be so thankful that I brought you here.
Yeah.
I honestly cannot wait to, potentially work together in the future.
Hmm.
And honestly, just keep in touch because you're like
Yeah.
so fun. This is so
I
fun.
am so fun, you know?
I don't know. There's a
So,
thing that, maybe vendors, they think that they feel a little bit more like, you guys are maybe out there and, it's just, we put these levels in our mind
hmm,
that
yes.
sometimes we forget that we're just people.
Oh, yeah. I'm just a regular girl who
Yeah.
walks her dogs twice a day and does like Pilates and tries to keep her cortisol levels like calm. Like that's literally not
That's what we got to do to stay
the,
healthy.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, it was so wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on. This is
Thank
super
you.
fun. And I'm very curious to hear from people like what stuff resonated or like feel free to ping me on Instagram at the Nouveau
Yes.
Romantics or anything like that. I'd love to know. And if you want the AI marketing machine, it has zero name. I think I made a name and then I just like gave up on it. Let me know. It's like $225, but like it's worth it because like
Girl, I might get it right after
all
here.
of my best performing Instagram and TikTok posts were ideated. It came up with ideas and then I verbally just dictated. I was like, oh, lighting. And then it organized it and then I edited it some more. And those things have been doing so well because it's my client's words mixed with my experience and then kind of like pull it through a different system. So
That is a tool that all of us
it
need.
is. It is. It
That is
is.
a game changer.
And what's also great is everyone's got different client reviews, right? Like it's always going to be personal because I'm like, mine is not going to be the same as yours. There's no way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not going to be like we're all going to sound the same. I was like, no, it pulls from your reviews. So,
Exactly. And I
so
feel like even with ChatGPT, like a lot of people are starting to sound the same. And I'm like, I can catch it. I'm pretty sure the couples can too.
yeah, no, totally. Thank you
I
for having
appreciate
me. Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for watching and listening all the way to here. I know it's a whole hour, but I hope it was so juicy and insightful. Liz went above and beyond to provide so much information for everyone in the wedding industry and for any couple that are looking for that perfect match. She is an amazing wedding planner. Go ahead, take a look at this really cool guide that she mentioned for ChatGPT. I'm looking forward to keep growing this channel. So subscribe, share with your friends and family. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.